We're all crazy in very particular ways, neurotic, unbalanced, and immature, but we don't know the details because no one encourages us too hard to find out. Our friends just want to be kind and have fun with us. Our enemies don't want to waste the trouble. So we end up with such a poor level of self-understanding. We have no clue of who we'd be compatible with. A standard question on any early dinner date should simply be, "How are you mad?" But it's so hard to know. Secondly, we don't understand other people. It's as hard to work out the craziness of other people as it is our own. They put on such a good show at first. What we'd ideally need is to send them and us through a battery of psychological questionnaires and have 4 years of intensive psychotherapy, individuals and couples-based, before reaching a decision. By 2100, this will no longer sound like a joke. People will merely wonder why it took humanity so long to get us here.
Digging in the crates for something good. Hidden gems often misunderstood. 'Cause you know there's no such thing as too much. Miscellaneous important stuff.
Welcome back to the show. That clip that you just heard is from the School of Life YouTube channel. It's called Why You'll Marry the Wrong Person. It's not as negative as it sounds. It actually ends pretty hopeful. And I think it's a good intro for what we'll be talking about today. Sean and Cassie are back. If you don't know who they are, you should go back and listen to episode 1 and 3. They're friends of mine. They're also married. They're also both graphic designers. So we talked some about marriage and why you should get married and how to deal with certain challenges that come with both partners having similar careers. It was a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoy it too. Here it is. Guys, welcome back.
Hey.
Good to be back.
First question.
Okay.
Biggest question.
Jumping right in.
Why get married?
Good question. I'll let Sean take the lead on this one.
You can both
Like
answer.
a true
I'm
man.
just
take the lead. Take the lead.
I feel like obviously there's going to be a lot of challenges with any marriage. But
Yeah.
why get married
That's
and not stay single?
I think it's a multifaceted answer.
So Sean wanted to get married before I did. So
How much longer before?
This is true. We can talk about this.
How much longer? Like a couple years?
So we were together 5 years before we actually tied the knot. So trace that back 4 years before we got engaged. So I'd say about 3 years into it, I was ready to commit to getting married. But I knew that going into our relationship, I could not expect that as the outcome because she laid that out to me early on in the beginning as far as her requirements for marriage that she had at the time. I did not meet.
Yeah.
So I went into our relationship knowing that it might not work out how I would like a long-term relationship to work out, but I thought that I would do it anyway because of how I felt and just see how things turned out. And about 3.5 years in, after I had expressed the interest in doing so, she finally gave me a sign that also said that she was all right with that. And so we went from there. But it took a while.
Sign? What does that even mean?
So we had talked about it on and off just briefly throughout those 3 years that we'd been together, and it was just something we kind of knew, like, hey, let's just be honest, this was like a faith-based decision. Cass wanted to marry someone who was as a devout Christian as she was. She wanted someone who could be strong in that regard of a relationship and be a Christian leader in the family. And that's not something that I was when we were in our relationship. And So it took a little bit of time, I think, for her to maybe realize that, I don't know. I don't know what she came to eventually realize, but the catalyst for it was 3.5 years into our relationship. I took an overseas trip to South Korea, to Seoul, to go to my little brother's wedding. And when I was gone, it was the first time in that 3.5 years that we had really, truly been apart. Like, we can't see each other. We can't take that hour or 2 hour drive to, be with each other. We were distanced by an ocean. And I think that's when she realized, like, hey, like, I don't really want to live without you, and so I'm okay with it. And so she sent me a text message. It was like, okay, I'm ready. And I still have this text message to this day. I have it, I think, maybe even on my phone, on my computer at work.
Yeah.
That's nice.
I was like, all right, I can't live without you.
Where she's like, all right, let's get married. And so I came back from my little brother's wedding with finally, like, the permission from her to be like, all right, let's take our relationship to that next level. And then, it took another half a year for me to get prepared financially and get a ring and, like, think about how I wanted to do it. But yeah, that was the catalyst, was that trip.
But you did say that you were ready to get married before me, which I think is interesting because the girl that you dated before, you dated for 5 years.
6.
So, yeah, okay, 6 years.
That's
So
a
what was,
while.
yeah, like, you dated her for a while, but you obviously weren't ready for that step in that relationship. So what was different, though? Like, why were you like, all right, I'm ready to marry this girl?
I think it was just our shared interest in so many things in life, like a lot of our shared tastes, both being creative, both being artists, both being designers, both liking video games. You grew up with a friend group of mostly males, whereas I grew up with a friend group of little brothers and mostly dudes, and the occasional girl that was like you who, would hang out with the guys. So you were not the typical kind of girly girl. You were a girl who had never been afraid to go outdoors and handle bugs and lizards. And
Yeah. I feel like on my side, it was like you were like all of my guy friends, but I was also attracted to you. So that was nice and different and exciting for me.
when we got together, she had said, like, it's weird, I don't know that you have any idea about this, but when I was a little bit younger, I drew like a picture of my ideal partner, and it looks like a lot like you at this
very
time.
Anime style
guy. So it was meant to be.
Yeah. It really does look just like Sean.
It was funny.
Why is that not framed somewhere?
It probably should be. But yeah.
So like what took you so long, Cassie? Like at what point did you go, maybe this other stuff's more important than what I thought was important? Is that...
Well, I think it's like, I was looking for this ideal person in my mind who had all of the perfect thoughts about things. And even in Christianity, like, no one's going to have all the exact things that you want. Like, it's just not going to happen. Like, I was a very devout Christian at that time. And, that's still a part of my life now. But I was very hardcore about, like, who I thought would be, like, my partner. Like, very specific lists of attributes. And Sean probably didn't check all of those boxes, but I still loved him and felt very strongly about him. So it was like a internal struggle of, like, I love this guy more than I've ever loved anyone, but also he's not, like, checking all the boxes that I've laid out for myself. Kind of going back to what we talked about earlier, having checklists where it's, like, nice to check those boxes, but sometimes that's not really what your heart wants.
So, like, for those 3 years before we decide, or before 3.5 years that she decided that she was okay with moving to that next step, there was a lot of like guilt that she dealt with,
Yeah.
like based on her faith and like how she thought a relationship should be, and then how we were living. So
Yeah. It was an internal struggle for sure. But
I'm sure. I mean, I remember how many years ago? That was like 5 years ago now. I dated somebody who, she's a pastor's daughter. Cassie, I've told you about her. She was funny. I just loved being with her, and it was sort of the opposite thing where I felt defeated before we even really got into it, because I'm like,
Yeah.
I felt like I needed to be that for her. I need to be more of a Christian. I need to go to church, and I think that's what she wanted to, which is also fine. But it was like,
that's hard. And I know Sean probably felt some of that pressure too with me.
yeah,
Like, I gotta step it up if I want to be with her kind of feelings. Yeah.
yeah,
because part of me was willing to do it too.
and same here. I was willing to try to do things, but I also didn't want to lie to my and like not be myself, because ultimately you want someone to love you for who you are and not what they want you to be.
But
Yeah.
that's also hard on this side of things. Whenever I was like, I did love him for who he was, but that was also contrary to what I thought I was going to
Yeah,
find myself in, you know?
thought you needed to be with somebody
Yeah,
else
for
So,
sure.
mm.
So I was like, damn it, I love you.
But was it that time when you were apart, or did something else happen where
No,
you?
that was really it. I think where just being away from him for an extended period and being alone with my thoughts and just missing him so hardcore. Like, we had never really been apart, like, at all since we got together. Like, we got together and we really never spent a day apart for those like 3 years until he
mean,
was gone.
There was like she
Like,
had a summer
short
internship where
periods.
we'd have, you know, a few days apart, and
But Sean would come and see me like all the time. He drove like hours to
And
see
she
me.
drove to see me, and
constantly.
she would come,
We would
and-
drive and
this
stay
was
with each
between
other.
Wichita, Kansas, and Stillwater, Oklahoma. So,
So we had really not been apart until he left for that like.
and you moved to
Long
Tulsa
trip.
before I did, so you were also
Yeah.
living in Tulsa before I moved
That's
there. But
true.
I also was like taking
We
the
were
shuttle
seeing
bus.
each other very frequently, even though we were living in different places.
But this was the first time we'd spent a dedicated week apart, and we're literally separated
Like,
by an ocean.
I couldn't just be like, damn it, I miss him. I'm gonna drive the 3 hours to go see
We
him.
we couldn't even talk on the phone. I could only get text messages when I had Wi-Fi at the hotel. So
Yeah. So I was like,
But
I miss him so much. I guess we're getting married now.
why stay married? And that comes, I'm saying that from a good place. I think I always
I
come
gotcha.
across as the guy who's like angry at marriage or against marriage. I'm not actually very much for it than anyone I see in a marriage that I think could go well or could be good. I'm like very supportive of that. I also think people should get divorced if it's not working. So I'm like, where's
Yeah.
the middle ground? Like, why stay married? Because there's going to be problems just like with anything else. What are the good things you see about marriage? Like, why do you want to keep doing it?
I feel like just being with him every day, like even if it's terrible, there's something about having that shared history for years that's like comforting, and it's always there. And like, he gets inside jokes that like no one else would get because we've been together. We have like inside jokes that go back like 8 years. So there's like something very tangible about having that in your life that's like really nice to have. It's nice to fall back on. Like, even if I have a shitty day at work and I'm like, well, all of my work friends like hate me today, like he's always there. Like, there's something really lovely about having that always. I don't know.
if you did it correctly, and hopefully you did, then you married someone who, as cliche as it sounds, is also your best friend. So
Yeah.
even when you're hanging out at home and it's not in a romantic way that relationships can be, like, you're still just being with the person that you want to be with more than almost anyone, no matter what you're doing, and how your appearance is. Like, you just want to be with that person, and you don't care how they look or how you look. Or
That seems very important, actually, because, yeah, like, I can hang out with Sean with no makeup on and just looking nasty like a old bag lady, and like he's like chill with it, which is beautiful. And I don't have that relationship with anyone else.
Like, I literally like have an argument with her when she like wants to get ready to go do something. Like yesterday, we had been hanging out all day and
Just
it got late, and it's like,
nasty.
well, we finally
So
need to go get
nasty.
some groceries, and so Cass's turn to go get groceries. She's gonna go to Trader Joe's, and like to me, she looked fine. I was like, maybe she's gonna go
I
like touch up her
had,
makeup
like,
and like throw on some clothes and go. And no, she
Had
went
like
and got in the
stringy
shower.
hair, no makeup. He was
Like-
like, "You're getting ready to go get groceries?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go in public." And he was like, "You look fine." I was like, "I would literally never go out of the house looking like this."
But that's it. It's like you see,
Yeah,
you
he's
see
like
this
chill with it
person
though. He's
that
like, "Well, you
just-
look fine.
you-
Who cares if you look like a bag lady? Get out there."
You're like, you're my favorite bag lady.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, but do you have to remind yourself of those things?
Oh yeah. I mean, there's times where it's terrible, like
Yeah, it's not always beautiful. I mean, sometimes it's challenging. It's hard. It's frustrating. It's
yeah, there's like months where we've just been like mad at each other or in fights where we don't sleep in the same room, and yeah. There's definitely times where you have to remind yourself like, well, I made this commitment.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're like, fuck that commitment.
Yeah, but what about when you were dating? Because like I get to that point and I'm like,
I
well,
don't know. I don't feel like we had as many. I don't know. There were times where it was tough, but I feel like it's different when you're married and you're living in the same place
yeah.
together.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
different.
Sharing a space with someone is very different. I mean, we stayed together obviously before we lived together in a marriage, so
But it's different because we still had our own.
we did. We had our
separate
escape.
space that
Like
we.
I had an apartment, she had an apartment. Even if we stayed in one apartment, then if we got in a fight, it's like we still had our own place to go to.
and we each got to like use that space as like our creative outlet of how it was decorated and how things were placed, and like it was like our own personal spaces. And now
and
we have like
we
a
each have
shared
our own
space.
kind of style of how we like to
And now
decorate.
it's shared, and it's just a constant battle. I
Well,
come
what
home
if-
late at night and Sean's like rearranged some stuff, and I'm like, I hate it.
So what if you both had an apartment? I've thought a lot about this because I know someone else who's done it. Because I wonder if I got married, it's like maybe we just have apartments
Yeah.
next door.
I
And,
mean,
like,
I think that
some
could
nights
be
we stay together. Some
beautiful.
nights we're like, I don't know, I'm just gonna hang out
Yeah.
my place.
Yeah, I think that could be beautiful. I think I've told you before that my grandpa has had that type of relationship for like 25 years where
Yeah.
his girlfriend like lives in an adjoining town, and like they have their own space, and they can hang out a couple nights a week, but then they just like have their own separate space, and it works really well
I mean,
for them.
I don't know what it would be like if I was raising kids.
Yeah, I feel like that might be different.
But maybe it really were. If you were next door, you're like, hey, mommy and daddy, we love each other like nobody you would believe. We also love our own places.
Oh yeah. I do feel like that's a huge part of being married is sharing a space. That seems to be like probably the biggest difference, because we dated for 5 years. That has been a huge difference, is like actually sharing a space together, which is extremely challenging. Like I get a little bit OCD sometimes about cleaning things, and Sean is like, why can't we just like chill out a little bit? And so
Also-
it's been hard for him, I think, because
We just both have things that we've grown attached to over the years, and things that we like that we wanted to display, and so we have to come to a compromise on the things that we want to have out, and because we have a lot of things combined.
lots of art and
We
toys
both collect
and
things.
music, and yeah,
we have hundreds of vinyl records. We have hundreds of video games. We now have hundreds of graphic novels and manga and books, and so
oh my god,
and
I'm,
and
like,
a
feeling
collection
so
of artwork and
stressed
prints,
thinking
like prints, framed prints. We have like
about
a
to Marie
bunch.
Kondo when we go home. I'm about to just
So
purge.
we have to come to an agreement on how we organize and display all of these things that we love.
Yeah, but it's also great. I think I'd be annoyed if somebody had all the what's the store where you can just buy a bunch of Gordmans? the you know, it's the wood with white writing that's just lit.
Bric-a-brac.
Live, laugh, love.
Yeah.
if like I married somebody and that's what they had, and I'm like, yeah, I got this poster and I have this book I love and I got these things I made, and she's like, I bought this at Walmart.
Like a Hobby Lobby life.
Yeah, it's like, ugh, gross. Like, we're just gonna hang all my stuff up.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't it great that you all have things that you love individually?
Yes, yes.
It's great, but it's also challenging.
But I think one of the things that makes our relationship work is we both do have a similar taste in
That's
aesthetics.
true. We've always had a similar taste in design, which I don't know, maybe that played a part in why I was attracted to you in the first place. Because Sean was like he was already a designer out in the world when I met him in school, and I was like, damn, I really like what this dude's doing. Like, this is some really chill stuff. I'm loving it. I was like definitely attracted to his design style as well as like him in general. But that, I do think that played a part in my initial attraction, was knowing that you were a designer, but also I really loved the style that you were designing in. That was definitely a part of it.
Yeah, what if you did stuff that you thought was awful?
I don't think it would have been the same.
Because you could still be attracted. Like, opposites attract, but I don't know if they attract in a way that's meaningful long term.
She just would have been like, maybe you should do something other than design.
Yeah.
Like, what else are you passionate about?
Good effort.
Maybe?
Good effort.
But I think it would have been the other way around, because he was already like established as a designer, a successful
So
designer.
I could have been like, I don't know if you.
Yeah, I could have
like-
seen you being like, well,
Oh, you went to college for it. Well, there's still time
yeah,
for
you
you.
could do something else. Like, he met me when I was a sophomore, so I had not even done any work that was going in my portfolio yet. So like, a part of probably my evolution as a designer was influenced by Sean, because like I really was like a fangirl of what he was doing. Like, I thought it was dope. So I do think it probably influenced me on some level.
I think it makes sense. Like, especially as I get older, and because I'm such a, I guess, creative, do a lot of different things, I find myself attracted to people's work. And if you combine that with somebody who also I'm just attracted to, like, that's,
Yeah.
it seems crazy to not have the work part. You know, it's like
Yeah.
it's just such a part of my life that if it was somebody that just goes, they just work in an office at a bank, like, that's fine, but I'm just not as interested in that.
Yeah.
It seems so important to have somebody who has some sort of work, whatever that is.
Mm-hmm. Some passion.
Yeah. So what if you guys met and one of you was the total opposite? Do you really think you'd be together? Do you think that's important?
I mean, none of my relationships previous worked out, like none of those. I was briefly with someone who was creative, but personal differences, I guess.
Same. Kind of.
I don't know.
I mean, before we started this, we kind of briefly talked. I had a relationship prior that was another creative person, and instead of feeling like it allowed me to do more, I felt more stifled and like I couldn't do the same thing. There was like a kind of a competitiveness, a kind of, I don't know,
But
just
have you
something
ever-
that wasn't ever a part of our relationship.
Have
I
you
don't feel
felt like it's been competitive with you and I before?
No, not so much. I mean, I feel like maybe when you were in school and having me be an established designer already, like when you were working on things, I think maybe you felt an additional pressure because you knew I was there and like watching you work, and like, maybe that put more pressure on you.
I don't know if it really put pressure on me. I feel like it was helpful to me to have you to like talk about what I was doing with. But I don't know if it really put more pressure on me. I think I was just putting all the pressure on myself no matter what.
I mean, even if you could make the argument that you guys shouldn't have dated because you're both designers, like, even if you made that argument, it still seems, to me, it just seems like it's just another challenge because you're both designers. But I think if you weren't both designers, you would have met somebody else that was creative.
Probably, yeah.
I think I would need that. I need someone else that challenges me to do better in my own field. And because we're in the same field and have that eye for each other's, a similar aesthetic eye, I think we challenge each other as far as when we're showing stuff to each other, it's like they're always like the first person that kind of gets to be the test subject, and they're the one you want to be like, yeah. If they're
But
like, no, like,
I also feel like it's harder to say like nah to each other.
it can be, but
because like you want to be the supportive partner.
That's good though.
That's hard to like. It's very hard, I think, to say like I don't know about that when it is your partner.
It's the best though, because I even think about that with like Jason. I respect his opinion, so I don't want to hear from him that he thinks it's not funny or whatever. Whatever we're working on, it's not good or it's not funny or it's not. I wouldn't do that, but I appreciate it, and I appreciate it more from him than I do from most people.
Yeah, but I feel like there's also been times where I'm sure both of us have not told each other the truth because it's hard to. You don't want to let your partner down. You want to be supportive of your partner. Like in relationships where it's not that way, where if like I was the only designer and he was doing something else, like he would just be like, yeah, it's great no matter what. And I feel like no matter what, we always feel that need to be like, you're doing great, even if it's like something that we personally maybe don't love. It's harder to critique your partner.
it is for sure. And like you, especially these days, I think come to me for like, hey, can you give me a quick critique or advice on this? And you'll send me a screen grab of something through Messenger, and it's like, all right, I need to do this with a critical eye. I need to actually give some feedback. Like I can't just say it's good. Like saying it's good is not going to be what you're looking for. You're not looking for that. You want me to tell you what's wrong with it. So I actually have to take a minute and be like, all right.
Yeah,
and it's hard.
You
it
are
is hard.
honest. Like even recently, you've been honest with me about things.
But it is hard because you don't want to hurt your partner's feelings, but you also want to be honest with them and help them be the best that they can be. So it is kind of like a teeter-totter that you have to.
Yeah, and like I'm just thinking about like a very specific situation. Just as a preface, I sent Sean a logo recently, and he was like, you know what? This is really reminding me of this other logo. So this is like, this goes both ways. But he had done some design like last year for like it's like a breakfast kind of party where they do like eggs. It's like egg based, and it was like tiki themed, and there were like these tiki
I think I've seen
things,
this one.
and they were like biting into some eggs, but it looked real inappropriate. And like I had to tell him, but like there's like a level of me that like doesn't want to say it, but also
Well, I had these like tiki statues with eggs hanging out of their mouths,
dripping out of their
and so
mouths.
I mean, I wasn't
because you were
thinking-
close to it, so yeah, you're not thinking about it in that way.
But she came to me and she was like, "Yo, that's like super sexual," and like that's probably.
But here's the thing: that one seems easy to say because you're also not necessarily saying it's bad design. You're just saying, "Hey, this is what I see."
No, and it was good. It was
This is what
good
I see.
design, but like they're having someone say that, like that's important. I always need someone to go over those things. Like we were talking at work the other day, we're doing like a more high profile logo design, and we're like, we need to have like a couple rounds of like people making sure that there's like nothing inappropriate, because no matter what, someone's probably gonna see something inappropriate. Like there has to be a level of also like checking those things.
That's true.
Yeah, it's good.
But I don't know. It's like,
check.
but I mean, you probably get so much more like out of that sort of relationship, that creative relationship, than you would out of the opposite, don't you think?
Probably, yeah.
I don't know, but I'm also coming from a place where I'm like, I think that's what I want. So I'm like, tell me it's good, right?
Well, it is. Like one thing that's been like a huge benefit for me recently is Sean just being like a dope ass partner, number one, but really supporting me in like creative endeavors outside of work, where he'll like make dinner for me while I do embroidery, because he knows that that's something that I'm like really passionate about right now. So he's like given me the space to do that, which is, I don't think most partners would like fully grasp that. They'd be like, why are you sitting on your ass for like 5 hours after work? Like, please get up and stop doing that. Yeah. Like, yeah, that's like huge for me.
Yeah, again, that's just part of sacrifice in a relationship and doing
But I
something.
don't think you would understand it as much if you weren't creative yourself.
Yeah, that's how I've felt. Where I think there were times in other relationships where I feel bad, where like I'm trying to explain why I need to do the things that I'm doing, and they tried to understand, but it was hard for them.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I don't even know why.
Like, I just gotta do it.
Like, I need to do this.
Yeah.
This doesn't feel like I'm spending too much time on it. It doesn't feel like I need to do it. And I don't think a lot of other people could understand that.
Yeah. I could see myself having a different husband who's not creative, who's like, literally you're spending like 5 hours after work every day, doing cross stitch on a sweater for yourself. Like, why are you doing this?
And then you feel like you gotta apologize for it.
Yeah, but he's like super understanding about it, which is beautiful.
It's just I understand that we come from different work environments. I have one client where you have many. I have a lot less people I have to deal with. I have a lot less distraction. I feel like the stress levels are a lot different. Our work hours are a lot different. So I feel like when you come home, I want it to be an environment where you can relax, because you didn't have that all day. And so I try to take up more responsibilities at home sometimes to give you some time to come down and have an outlet.
Yeah, I super appreciate that, and I don't feel like I would get that in a relationship with someone who wouldn't understand me needing to have like some creative outlet outside of work.
And to where you're not just looking at a screen, like,
Yeah.
I mean, you may look at a screen to like look at your reference
Yeah.
material, but it's different. You're actually working with your hands, and yeah.
What do you think it'd be like if both of you came home and you're like, I got all the creative fulfillment I need for the day? Like,
I can't even imagine that life.
yeah, how would the relationship look? Or maybe if
I don't
you
know.
both were able to make money creating whatever you wanted, do you think you'd collaborate on things, or do you think you just go off and do your own thing and then come home and...
I feel like we would do our own thing. I feel like we've collaborated a couple times, but not super frequently.
We did some good collaboration for our wedding stuff, I feel like.
Yeah.
I feel like Cass did a lot of like the actual designing of the wedding stuff with just input and maybe a little bit of direction from me, just concept and idea wise, and then she did a lot of the actual designing, and then I took some pictures of our printed materials, and so in the end it was a nice collaboration, I feel like. And we even did some collaborations back when she was in school. We worked on a couple things, just smaller things together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something we've always just talked about, just like, do you think we could ever like work together, like do our own thing? And it's not something either of us right now is desiring, but I think that once we have the experience in our careers that we both want and all the knowledge that we want, then I think eventually we could just do that ourselves if we wanted to.
We have very different work styles.
But that could be
Very
complementary
different.
though.
Maybe, but I think it would be more frustrating to see it in action.
And see, this is funny because this is something that we've talked about forever, and we still have differing opinions on, apparently. So
Maybe you just need somebody in between to be like,
I think
guys,
yes, if there was like one other person, but then that's like terrible for that other person, because like who wants to work with a married couple?
Yeah, you
just like this one person and us. Like
maybe it's two married couples.
I feel like maybe yeah.
Somehow everyone like compliments each other in some way. There's the one that's like the mediator. It's like, everyone just calm down.
Yeah.
We're gonna figure this out because I'm gonna make the decision.
Yeah.
I think though, doing the same thing though, there are certain things you just have to come to realize. You can't be jealous and you can't be competitive. And like, I've been in the game for, it'll be 11 years this year.
Professionally.
So I graduated in 2008 and then started working professionally as a freelancer right after that. And so, yeah, 11 years. And Cass graduated in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
So she's been doing it for now 8 years.
Yeah.
So, like, it's hard sometimes when you get into different positions with different salaries and titles, and it's like, well, you know, so she has a different position than I do now and a different salary, and we work for different kinds of companies. I'm at a nonprofit where she's at an agency, and so she honestly is the breadwinner in our relationship. So
Yeah, and my title is what would technically be like above what he has, which is ridiculous because he has more experience than me, but he's working at a nonprofit who doesn't like fully understand that world of like titles and roles. So he's like a graphic designer, whereas technically what he's doing is like creative director work for the most part. But yeah, I think that's frustrating for him because he knows he's doing the work for a much higher title and what should be a much higher salary. But
it doesn't make me frustrated that you have that. Like, I'm happy for you. I'm
It's frustrated for yourself.
yeah, it's just
like,
hard, I think, because
it's just because you're like, it's hard not to compare, like,
yeah, 'cause
to your
we're
partner
doing like the
with the
same
person
kind
you
of
live
job.
with, and we do the same thing.
And he's been in the game much longer than me.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that can be rough.
But it's not that you can help either.
No,
No.
and I mean he could I think if he wanted to get back into like the advertising game.
Well, of
but
course.
that's not.
But I mean, you can't help it like in your
for-
current situation. It's not like anything
Right.
you did wrong or I mean,
No.
really a bunch of things you did right. You just don't
Yeah.
have the same title.
And I think that where he's at is more suited to his personality and how he works. Like he's like a baller at working for like a nonprofit and having that one client and doing like really dope stuff for this one client. Like he gets to do really cool stuff, like super dope movie posters. Like I look at his stuff all the time for like design inspiration because it's really good. So I don't think that he would trade that for like a better title in the scheme of things.
Yeah.
True.
Do you guys ever talk about what your marriage looks like 30 years from now?
No.
20
No.
years from now?
No.
Never.
No.
Really?
Nope.
No.
Nope.
Probably should. But
Well,
no,
I don't
no.
know. I'm just interested. I don't know.
I think there's an important in like living in the moment and focusing on the now, and like it's nice to have goals and to think about the future
yeah,
to
I mean,
an
like
extent.
we'll
But
vaguely talk about it
I don't.
or like possibilities, but we don't.
It's a lot more now.
Yeah.
I mean,
There's
it's
a lot
probably
going
better.
on in our life. We don't need to focus on
There's like
the ifs,
plenty
ands, or buts
happening.
about the next 30 years.
Like, oh, it would be nice to like live in the mountains. That's about as far as it gets.
See, that's where my issue is. I think I always look too far ahead. If
Yeah.
I'm by myself, I'm fine. I'm like, I can live in the moment.
Yeah.
It's when I get with somebody else where I'm like,
You start feeling the pressure to look
yeah, I don't know if
to the
I'll
future.
be good a year from now or.
But why
a
does it
week from
change
now.
when you're with someone?
I do not know.
'Cause-
I put such an emphasis on marriage though, and like having a
Yeah.
good marriage and a good relationship, and I
But
feel
does that make
guilty.
you look to the future more, do you feel like?
Yeah, because I also, in some ways, have a timeline. So I'm like, all right, I'm already in my 30s. Like, well, you don't want to go down the wrong path because then by the time you're done with that, then you're older. And yeah, I just get real panicky.
But yeah, I feel like that's part of why it works with Sean and I is because we don't always do that.
Yeah.
It's like we do. It's more like how you live now. It's just like living right now.
Yeah, I think it's better. I think I appreciate that. And I
Yeah,
recognize
I
that
know it's
I need
hard
to do
to
that.
whenever
Yeah.
you're. I think it's harder like whenever I was dating Sean, because we hadn't made that full commitment. So it is like you start thinking about those things.
Yeah, we did
more.
have to think more about the future because it's like the future is like, are we going to get married? And that was always
Like,
looming.
Is it
It's
gonna
like,
happen?
Is this going to happen? And now we don't have that. We have
No.
that security. So now we just like,
Don't have to think about it.
I mean, now we're thinking about like, well, we want a house for the yard for the dogs, and like we'd like to have a good retirement. And so there are things that we think about, but it's not like we're
It's not as urgent.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense.
But yeah,
I think if I made that commitment, I'd be the same way. I think if I made that leap and was like, well, I think this is what
Now
I'm
I'm
going to
in
do,
it.
I think I would be fine.
yeah.
I think I just never got to the point where I'm like, I think I could do that.
But I think even after you make that leap, it's still like sometimes you're gonna question it. Sometimes you're gonna.
I just think if I knew enough to think that I could marry somebody, I'd be fine in the marriage
Yeah.
because I'm so critical. Or I have high standards for myself because I think I would be fine alone. So if I ever got to the point where I'm like, I think I can marry you, then I would go in knowing that it might not go well, but I'd still want to do it.
Yeah.
So I'm just not there yet.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard to get there.
Oh,
It's
it's
hard
real
for me
hard.
to get there.
I bet.
Yeah. It's hard to take that step.
We also came from very different family lives. Like I had a split family since I was 7 years old, and Cass's parents have now celebrated more than 30 years of marriage together. So
That's true.
we had a very different family life growing up, and ideas of marriage and stuff. So
See, that's interesting because my parents got divorced and they were never happy, and so for me, I'm like, I don't know if I should get married.
I do feel like that plays a lot into your fears.
Yeah, but I'm like,
of-
John, your family was split, but then you seem to be the more committed one. So
Yeah.
it's like the opposite.
And
for
he's
you guys.
always been like in long-term relationships, like all of his life. He was in
It's
like
true.
long-term relationships.
I've always been a committed long-term relationship person. I've never been. I never had a one-night stand. I never was able to have those kind of relationships, just fleeting moment type things. It's never my style.
Yeah.
See, I would think it'd be the opposite,
Yeah, you would think.
which is interesting.
But I think even like Jay, your parents having split, like that affected you and wanting to find someone and being afraid of having that, like where it doesn't work out.
Well, yeah. Also, just because I knew my parents, when I really think about it, I'm like, what did you guys talk about? And I
Yeah.
think both. Maybe I don't know. They might both feel differently about it. When I think about it, I'm like, I love them both, but I'm like, did you really have that much in common?
But do you feel like that plays a part into you wanting to find someone creative? It's
Oh,
like
yeah.
finding something.
Because you feel like they didn't have much in common.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, and I've probably already found some, like lots of different girls that I've dated that I have
have
more in
more
common
in
with
common,
than what
yeah.
they had in common.
Yeah.
in the long term, I'm sure
Yeah.
they had stuff in common, but I'm just like, I feel like that's why I think about having a more meaningful relationship. Like I want a best friend. I don't know that they were that. Maybe they were. I'm not gonna speak for them,
but you would fully like disagree with like the opposites attract idea.
I think opposites attract, but just not
Not
for 50 years.
Yeah. Briefly.
Yeah, I've definitely been attracted to girls who were opposite from me, but
Yeah.
then I don't think that's somebody to marry.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I know we're at the end here, and I just want to say that this is something that I've come to realize later in life about marriage. Even though my parents had a failed marriage, I have heard both of them express to me that they wish that they could have made it work out.
Yeah.
And so that's always been something that's like
Like
on
a
me. Like,
driver for you to
Yeah, it's
make
like-
it work.
It's like, even if there are times where I feel like it's like hard, I have to realize like that's gonna pass. And like there would be a time if I were like, we're gonna get a divorce, that I know I would be like, man,
Shouldn't
I
have
really
done it.
wish we would have like
Worked on it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well let's have some advice then.
Find someone that likes the same shit as you.
Or at
That's,
least
like-
or at least truly appreciates the stuff that you like.
Yeah, because like most of the time, I think I've told you, Jay, that like Sean and I found out recently, hanging out with his family, that we had not been sharing like all of these life things, like my brother breaking up with his girlfriend and like all of these life things we like had talked about with his family, but we had not actually talked about with each other. But I think it's because when we're together, we're really just like hanging out, enjoying whatever we're enjoying together. Like we just like a lot of the same things. So we'll watch movies and talk about movies and life things. But yeah, that's like having someone who you can share those things with, I think is important.
Find someone who's passionate about things. Find someone who's interested in things that are different than you. And like I've found so many cool bands and books and things that I probably wouldn't have ever found if I hadn't have been with a partner who like was into different things than I am. And so they opened me to new things too.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Sean's introduced me to all kinds of cool stuff. That's really all you need. Someone to introduce you to the cool stuff.
I mean, it sounds like good advice to me. Okay, well, last thing is, we talked about this before we started recording, but what did we decide your average was for the year? Your average?
The average out of 10
It's an 8.
was an 8, yeah.
8 out of 10. I'm wondering,
it.
for anybody who's listening to this, if that's the impression that they got, just talking about marriage, that they're probably an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, probably not.
I don't know. So
But I feel like
that's
8 out
interesting,
of
though.
10 is pretty good, I would say.
Well, because we're talking about the more difficult stuff.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the opposite of social media, where you look at that and you go, they're like 11 out of 10.
Yeah.
11 out of 10 for
Yeah.
sure. Here, it's like they're probably a 3 or 4.
Yeah. But really, it was pretty good.
Yeah.
I feel like we don't post a lot about our relationship. I feel like
No.
our relationship is kind of our thing. We both post like each other's like creative work and kind of encourage each other in our social media, but we don't actually put much of our relationship out there.
No.
If I started seeing daily selfies with you two about different things, I'd be like, are you guys all right?
What's going on over there?
You're not happy, are you?
Just
I
forcing
think
it.
that's an important thing is we're both still individuals, but we are a couple. Like people know us
That's
as Sean and Cass, but
so important.
people know us too, just as like I'm
Yes.
Sean, she's Cassie.
Yeah.
So
That's true, and that seems also important, or should be
Yes.
important for more people, that you still get to be an individual.
For sure.
Once you're too dependent on being like the other person in a couple, that's
It's terrible. It becomes your identity, which
Yeah.
I think then you're not really yourself.
and also if you do get divorced or your partner dies or
Yeah.
whatever happens,
Where do
then
you
you're
go
screwed.
from there?
like I was totally cool if she wanted to keep her last name Like if she really wanted to, like be you. If you want to keep that as part of your identity, then that's part of your identity.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm glad you didn't, because it really helped my mark
Yeah,
these
you don't
sounds
have to
today.
have Stegman ball on the side.
On the
here.
show today, the balls
Also, Matt Farley might not approve
of balls.
of a lady changing her last.
Oh, that's right. That's a conversation for another day.
All right, well, it's been fun, Jay. Thanks for having
Yeah.
us.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Come
Thanks.
back soon. Maybe 13 weeks. Maybe in a couple weeks. I don't know. We'll see.
Sounds
We'll
good.
see.
Okay. I hope this episode didn't discourage anybody from getting married. I'm all for marriage. I'm even for marrying the wrong person, because you learn something from that too, right? I think it's a great thing. It's just I'm endlessly fascinated by other people's marriages, because I want to see what relationships work and what relationships don't work. So if you'd like to send me your rating of your own marriage, I would love to hear it. It'd be fun for me. I want to start taking a poll. But anyway, if you like this episode, please let us know. If you hate this episode, please let us know. And if you have any ideas for future episodes, please let us know. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next week.